Welcome to the Maritime Vision podcast. I'm your host, Paul Wioli. In each episode, we bring you exclusive interviews with maritime professionals, industry experts, and students. Our guests come from different backgrounds, including shipping, yachting, offshore, supply chain, and more. Our goal is to give you all the knowledge you need to succeed in the maritime industry. Hello everyone, welcome back to a new podcast episode. And today we are joined by David McFarlane. It's a pleasure to having you in this podcast episode, David. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Paul. Pleasure to be here. My name is David McFarlane. I kicked off my career way back in 1977, long before many of you were even born, probably. I joined Shell Tankers as a cadet, and after my apprenticeship on deck, I moved to a Hong Kong company as Shell were flagging out their vessels at the time, and I joined Jardines of Hong Kong and sailed on a variety of ships, which was a good experience for me. Sailed on tankers, bulk carriers, forest product carriers, refrigerated cargo ships, what have you. And I eventually left the sea at the very end of 1991 when I decided to come ashore and work for a ship management company.
Interesting. Why did you end your career in maritime incident investigations?
Well, it sort of snowballed from the ship management side of things. I spent a long time in ship management. I was there from 1991 to around 2010. And initially, I sort of started as a ship operator, which is equivalent to the DPA, as people now know them as. And then I worked my way up as a fleet manager. I was a general manager of a regional office looking after 15 gas tankers. And I eventually became a divisional manager of risk, safety, and quality. Part of that was getting the fleet and the company into the ISM way of thinking. We'd already had many processes and procedures in place, but we had to dovetail it and make sure we were fit for audits. And during that time, obviously, we were a very large shipping company. We were the largest in the world, in fact, at that point. And we had our fair share of accidents. And I would be dispatched from time to time if there was a serious accident. I remember one in particular, which was a tanker that had blown up in the Caribbean. And I got a call in the middle of the night saying, Captain McFarlane, I'm afraid we're abandoning ship. Which was a bit of a shock. And I phoned the CEO of the company, and I was told to get myself out there as soon as I possibly could. So my accident investigation really is almost self-taught. And to this day, I don't really do accident investigations per se. What my expertise is in the ISM code, and I act as an expert witness on behalf of lawyers, on behalf of their clients, where things have gone wrong, and I can act on behalf of either the owner or the charterer. It doesn't really matter, but to give an independent viewpoint of where I think things have either failed or gone well within the ISM code and how the company and the ship have approached that.
Okay. This is your guideline, I would say, this ISM code.
Yeah, that's my area of expertise, yeah. When I left the ship management side of things, I got a job as a project manager with Dr. Phil Anderson, who's an old friend and colleague. And he had a company called Consult ISM or Consultism. And I joined there. I was there for just over a year. But he sort of took me through expert witness work, I helped sort of progress cases, and that's where I really got my footing in the expert witness side of things. It wasn't. It still isn't really my main job. Although, actually, that's not quite true. It is my main job now. What I used to do before COVID was quite a lot of training. The training in risk assessment, risk management, management of change, accident investigation, and I worked for Bureau Veritas. I was seconded to Bureau Veritas for that sort of thing. But since COVID, nobody seems to be that interested in non-mandatory training anymore. So virtually all my work now is as an expert witness.
Okay. Interesting. Can you define, for people who don't know, what is it, an expert witness?
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes to call themselves an expert. It sounds like you're sort of boasting. But yeah, you have various experts in different disciplines. So most people, when they think of an expert witness, they've seen a crime drama on television, and some experts come up onto the stand, discusses what's happened. My job is not that much different. As an expert witness, what you have to do is look at all the evidence that's submitted to you in great detail. I mean, some of the cases I've had, I've got literally thousands of pages of documents to wade through. And then it's trying to drill down on those, find out things, what's gone wrong, what's likely to have gone wrong, but try and find the evidence, the hard evidence, to point one way or another. It's not to apportion blame, that's up to the courts to do so. But you have to try and, you are the independent. Even though you're working for one side, your voice, if you like, is an independent voice. Okay. And the other side will have an expert as well. And frequently the experts will disagree.
Okay.
But before a court case, the experts will actually have a meeting together.
Okay. Do you work closely with insurance company? For example, if you have an incident on board a vessel, do they call you to make as an expert, or it's like you are completely independent?
It's not the insurance companies that contact me. The insurance companies will contact their solicitors, and it's their lawyers that will contact me.
Oh, okay.
So they will give me instructions. They will give me brief details of the case, the names of the parties involved, i.e. the shipping company, the charterer, the name of the ship. And the first question always is, have I got any conflict? Do I know the other side, or do I know part of the case? And generally speaking, the answer is no, there's no conflict.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the people who are bringing you the business, this is the lawyers.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So you have
there's lawyers from all, and it's lawyers from all over the world. I'm based here in Edinburgh, in Scotland, but the main sort of maritime law in the UK is obviously from London.
Yeah.
But apart from London cases, I've also been involved with Scottish cases, but also quite a number of American cases, recently involved in a Norwegian case as well, plus Hong Kong, Singapore. So it is a worldwide sort of network.
Yes. Yeah, shipping is worldwide anyway, so that's so true. Can you maybe explain the process of finding some evidence the whole process of maritime investigation, how it works from the beginning to the end?
Yeah, as I say, I have done on-board investigation in the past as well. And you really have got to sort of start from ground zero. What I do nowadays tends to be get appointed to a case maybe about 3 or 4 years after the accident has happened. So you're not getting any first-hand evidence. It's all evidence that's been gathered in previously. So sometimes just coming in late is a bit of a disadvantage sometimes. But if you were to go and look at a ship as soon as she's had an accident, there's various types of evidence you've got to try and collect. You've got your direct or real evidence. That's where something simply cannot be disputed. You know, it might be a broken pipeline or something like that. Then you've got your personal evidence, which is from interviews with witnesses. You've got your documentary evidence, which is the stuff that I normally look at. If you ask a seafarer about the ISM code, they normally roll their eyes and say, too much paperwork. Yeah. And I do sympathize with that. But the trouble with, well, not the trouble, but the whole point in having some paperwork is to prove that you've done the job correctly. It's not just a box-ticking exercise. All these checklists and work permits are there for a reason, and they're there for safety. And if the ship's complied, or its crew complied properly, then it helps their case by a great deal. So your documentary evidence is all things like checklists, your actual procedures in the first place. Are the procedures adequate? Have the checklists been used? Have the procedures been followed? Or has it been used, as I say, frequently, just as a tick box exercise, thinking that the only person that's going to check this is an auditor who comes on board later. Another form of evidence is prima facie evidence. That's that first appearance. So you may get two ships colliding. But they not two ships. So say there's a fishing vessel gets into port, and it says, we've had I'm jumping here. I'm going into circumstantial evidence. Prima facie evidence is if there's two ships colliding, you can almost assume straight away that it's been a breach of the collision regulations. There's almost no doubt about that whatsoever. So at face value, there is been a breach of collision regulations because, as you know, there's never one ship that's totally at fault. There's always two ships in a collision.
Of course.
Then you've got your circumstantial evidence, which I'm about to talk about. You've got circumstantial evidence that perhaps a fishing boat has gone into its harbour and it's got a big red streak of paint down the side. Fisherman is complaining that he's lost his fishing gear, his tackling wells, and a great big dent outside because of this particular ship. Now, it's just, at that point, it's circumstantial. He might have seen a red ship out there or ship with a red metal, but it doesn't mean that is particular ship he may have hit, if he did indeed hit a ship. So that evidence has got to go further, and it's got to be analysed by forensics to turn the circumstantial evidence into direct or real evidence.
Okay.
Then you've got your hearsay evidence, which you always get if you go on a ship, asking in interviews. It'll always be a case of, he said this and she said that. He's always drunk, or he's not. He never pays attention. He goes to sleep all the time. That's hearsay evidence. You can't use that in any reports or in a courtroom, but it can prove useful just to actually get a feeling of what's going on in the vessel.
Okay.
And the last type of evidence is what I do, and that's expert evidence.
Okay.
So that's the types of evidence you get involved in.
Okay. And to come up with the conclusion, how it works, do you submit it to the lawyers, to insurance companies?
My sort of area of expertise, what I have to do is keep asking the question, why? And until you find a reason, you don't really get to the root cause. When I did training, and hopefully I will still do some training in the future, but one of the little tasks I give the class is I put up on the board or PowerPoint a little vision of Tom and Jerry, and I have a piece of cheese on a kitchen work surface and the cheese has been eaten. And there is no hard evidence, it's just a bit of a game. But I try and get them to drill down as much as they possibly can to find out why has the cheese been eaten. Now, we know the mouse has eaten the cheese, or we assume the mouse has eaten the cheese. But why has it eaten the cheese? It's possibly hungry. But the cheese was left out. Why was the cheese left out? Then there's different questions about that. And it's amazing. After about 45 minutes or so, people come up with sheets and sheets of paper about the potential root cause of what has actually happened. It's a game. It's not real. But it's interesting and it opens people's eyes as the reason that you must keep asking the question, why?
Okay. So yes, so it's very hard, I imagine, to find one cause. I mean, sometimes you have different scenarios, and you cannot determine which one is the most accurate.
Yeah, that's correct. But also, it's my role as an ISM expert is to try and find what has gone right or what has gone wrong.
Okay.
With the procedures and the way the procedures were dealt with on the ship or the company. I think what you were going to ask me as well was, how does this get presented to lawyers? And after going through all the evidence I have, which is 100% documentary evidence I deal with, you then have your letter of instructions from the lawyers, and they are asking you specific questions, and you have to answer those questions in a very, very detailed approach. So you prepare an expert witness report, and that report will eventually go to either the arbitration hearing or the court and the judge. And the judge will use that as a main piece of evidence for or against the ship or the company.
Okay, quite clear. And about the ISM, because I know the crew need to follow ISM, but ISM is just like a text, like a guideline. How it works? I mean, for the crew, or what kind of tips can you give to a vessel crew, or like how to respect and to apply with this ISM code?
Yeah, I mean, the ISM is nothing new now. It came out back in 1998. It was for tankers and passenger vessels back then for all other vessels in 2002. So there's no great surprise now to anybody that's been at sea for many years. Right at the preamble of the ISM code, it states that no two ships and no two shipping companies are the same. So it's really up to the individual company to set their own procedures specific for their ships and crew. However, the flag state or the classification society on behalf of the flag state, they will review that system and approve it for use on board the ship from the company. And then it's open to audit, frequent audit, annual audit by the ship's own company, but also by frequent audits by the classification society or flag state. But the one of the things that my old friend and colleague Phil Anderson taught me was with the ISM code, it's a bit like the sword and the shield. And I've seen many shipping companies that have had massive safety management systems going into thousands upon thousands of pages and hundreds of checklists. And I've seen other companies that have got very small ones. There is no right answer to which is which. But going back to the sword and the shield, the lawyers can use the ISM code as a sword to attack you if they believe there isn't sufficient detail in it, or there may be sufficient detail, but the crew or the company have not complied with their own procedures. On the other hand, a good ship and a good company can use the ISM code as a shield. In other words, they can turn around and say, well, look, set of procedures, it's very good, it's been audited frequently, many, many times, and our company frequently review it, revise it, and our crews follow it. And if it can be proved that the crews have followed those procedures and the procedures are fit for purpose, then it helps the case a great deal. So the ISM code, it was never intended to be used in a courtroom or as a battleground, but unfortunately that has happened. And it can be used, as I say, as a sword or as a shield. Sword to attack the company, attack the ship, attack the crew, or a shield to protect it.
Okay. But is it mandatory to follow the complete ISM or not? It's just a guideline again.
The ISM code itself is compulsory.
Okay.
But the ISM code itself is only around 20 pages long. It more or less sets out the framework for what a company needs to do. It's set up to the individual company to produce a safety management system that's fit for purpose and fit for their types of ships in management or in ownership.
Okay, clear. Now I want to ask you, David, another questions regarding what are the most common incidents we have in the maritime industry?
I don't know off the top of my head. You would need to ask an insurer for that. But certainly the ones that I deal with tend to be, the ones that I deal with tend to be cargo and fire or explosion, or a combination of all of them. I did a case a couple of years ago, can't name any ships, but the ship was crossing the Atlantic with containers. There was a fire on board, resulted in an explosion, and 5 people were killed. So the cases that I get involved with tend to be the more serious ones. There's usually been either a loss of life or a loss of vessel, perhaps sinking, explosion, total loss. So it's the serious ones I tend to get involved with.
Okay. And why do we have so many explosions with container?
I think a lot of the time the containers are not being properly declared, and what the ship is being told is in the container is not necessarily the case, but it's always a difficult one to prove. There's been many cases of container ships. There was one ship many years ago now down in the English Channel, broke her back, and they reckoned that was because of the containers had been wrongly declared and their weights had been wrongly declared. So it created undue stresses on the vessel. So I think the container industry on the whole is getting better, but there still are problems within it. But it's not the cargo fires are not just related to containers. I've had a few cases as well that have been involved with project cargoes. So more or less a traditional multi-purpose vessel, and you have some sort of cargo, maybe bagged cargo or something in the lower decks. Then on the twin decks and above the twin decks, you've got loaded perhaps a wind turbine parts, and they need welded chocks put in place, and the weldings, the chocks and securing arrangements need to be removed before the ship can discharge the cargo. And occasionally what's happened is the shore gangs have been involved, and the ship perhaps has shifted the responsibility onto the shore, and they've not really taken their own precautions as to what they should do in the event of hot work. And hot work procedures haven't been followed, and as a result, the cutting operations have resulted in either sparks or got weld and something dropping down into the lower holds, which then start a fire. So that's been quite a common occurrence in the last few years as well. And of course, collisions. And as I said earlier on, there's never one ship that's at fault for a collision. There's always takes two ships to make a collision. And elisions as well. It's a word that's I don't think you'll find in the dictionary, but an elision is a ship making contact with a fixed object. And I've been involved with a couple of cases where a ship has gone astern and managed to ram an oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico. There's also been a couple of cases of the Mississippi River where a ship has had to take avoiding action to avoid collision with a downstream ship. In the process, they've gone too close to the shore, and it's resulted in hitting some barges and hitting a terminal on shore, resulting in quite a lot of damage. So the work is varied. The cases I have are varied. I could not possibly put my finger on what is the most common one, that's for sure.
Okay, but to come back to about collision, do you think that, for example, English Channel you mentioned, what are, I mean, in the world, the most common area for collision? Because English Channel have a high traffic, so I imagine it's quite common there.
No, the English Channel's quite good for collisions, or good for lack of collisions, I should say.
Okay.
It's well managed. There's good traffic separation scheme. People are on the ball. Collisions tend to happen when people get, I wouldn't say lazy is maybe the wrong word, but sort of getting a bit blasé into thinking that maybe they're in the middle of the ocean, things going to be around, and then they suddenly see a ship on the other side, maybe 5-6 miles ahead of them. Normally you just alter course correctly as per the collision regulations, and for some strange reason they alter course the other way, or the alteration is done too late. It happens. It's this human factor that we all talk about. But obviously, if you were to look statistically, you'll find that most collisions will happen in pilotage waters. Going up into Rotterdam, for instance, there's probably quite a few collisions that happen up there quite frequently. And that purely is down to the traffic density, but also perhaps malfunctioning of ship's equipment. And we know the recent story in Baltimore, where the vessel hit the bridge. She'd obviously suffered some sort of blackout, lost control, and the rest, as I say, is history. We all know what happened as a result of that collision. So these things do happen a lot in sort of restricted waters.
Okay. And just to come back to illustrate the process of your job, like expert witnesses, I mean, if, for example, with this Baltimore Bridge, how will be your job? What will be your mission on from step by step?
Well, I've not been appointed as an expert witness on that at all. I was on the phone for many hours that day. I was being interviewed by television. It was far east of Singapore and as far west of San Francisco. But they had just got my phone number and details. But I've not been appointed as a witness or an expert witness to that case. And if I am in the future, it will probably be maybe 2 or 3 years down the line before that happens. It's the way the industry works. Unless it's the accident investigators that are there on site, which case will be the U.S. Coast Guard or not the U.S. Coast Guard, but the Transport Safety Branch in the USA. They will be taking the the initial investigations. Of course, we know the FBI is also involved in this one.
Okay. Okay, and now I want to ask you more about charterer versus like ship owner. Are you dealing more with ship owner or charterer? Because if you have damage on board with the freight, I imagine this is charterer responsibility.
It's 50-50. The charterer will generally be the person who's on the party who will be raising the case against the ship owner. Although sometimes the ship owner will raise the case against the charterer because the cargo has been deemed as dangerous or wrongly classified. But if the charterer takes a ship to court or to arbitration saying they're not doing the right job, they didn't follow the rules, they didn't follow the procedures, then yes, I could act on behalf of the charterer, but again, I could act on behalf of the ship owner, because the ship owner's lawyers may want me to sort of try and defend or help defend their case.
Okay, quite clear. Is it like, because for charterer sometimes you need to you don't need the same knowledge to make investigation, because like for charterer it's more about the freight itself, the company story, and for the ship owner it's more about your knowledge about ISM, about the ships itself, the crew. Do you think that you need to specialize sometimes, or it's like you should be aware of both parties?
You've got to be aware of both parties, and also the lawyers that are used. The charterer will probably use the same lawyer as the ship owner will. Many of the big legal companies based here in the UK in particular that will act on behalf of charterers and will also act on behalf of owners as well.
Okay, quite clear.
It's the lawyers that have the legal. It's lawyers obviously that have the legal expertise. The parties that are involved.
Okay, yeah, the lawyers, of course. But of course it's a neutral opinion. I think for you it's like you don't take party. It's like you don't have any, I will say, benefits to your job. This is just to be neutral from your expertise. There is no, like, I would say, you need to be more like close to your client, so you need to help him like a lawyer actually.
No, you've got to be definitely neutral.
Okay.
You've got to examine the facts. You've got to examine the evidence, and you report it as you see it. Lawyers will always try and steer you in maybe one direction, and sometimes that's not a problem. But if they're trying to change your opinion, that is a problem that cannot be allowed.
Okay. So it's not allowed in this case. Clear.
Yeah, definitely not. No. If an expert witness was found, there are particular rules in fact law that an expert witness has to be independent. And if an expert witness is found not to be independent and is just taking the side of the lawyer that's contracting them, then they're in serious trouble, and the likelihood is that there'll never be an expert witness again.
Okay. Interesting. Can you maybe share like old stories or career anecdotes you had during your career, like just to something good, crazy, like it can be sad, inspiring, anyway?
Well, the case I talked about earlier on in the Caribbean, when I had to rush out to drop the hat. The first thing the captain said to me, the captain was actually, by that stage, removed off the ship, the crew were off the ship had blown up. But the first thing was met by the captain. The captain said, "Captain McFarlane, I'm sorry, sir, we have broken every rule in the book." And I thought, really, well, that's highly unlikely, Captain, and thank you for your candor. But actually, after investigating, he was right. He had broken every rule. But that was a horrible situation to be in. I was over in that particular country for about 2 weeks. And extensive interviews with the crew, trying to find out what had happened. And it was 4 shore workers that had actually been killed. and they, two of them were found on situ or in situ on board the vessels. The other two were catapulted off the ship into the sea and were found about a week later. But the police had taken photographs of the two individuals on the ship, and one of them wasn't a pretty sight. His intestines were hanging out the stomach, and the other guy, his back was bent double backwards over a pipeline. I haven't seen these photographs until it was Sunday before I left, and the tabloid newspapers in that particular country managed to get those photographs and put them on the front page of the newspaper. Within a couple of hours, we were getting, both myself and the crew were getting death threats. So we had to wrap up the investigations pretty quickly and get everybody off back home safely. It wasn't a very nice experience.
Wow, impressive. Yes, and I imagine you had so many like quite crazy stories during your whole career. But now I want to ask you, David, like if someone wants to work as a witness expert, I mean, how it works, what is the process, how many experience do you need in the industry, at sea, in ship management, how it works?
That's a good question. If I knew the answer to that question, I'd probably be rich and retired by now. It's not something I would recommend as a career. There's not enough work, frankly. But as I say, I do, or I should be able to do training and other work as well, review of safety management systems. I'm not getting sufficient work in at the moment. So if anybody out there wants some work, I'm available. So the expert witness side of things was almost to balance some of the workload out. To do 100% expert witness work, it's sporadic. You might get a few months that you've got no work whatsoever. And then the next month you might get 3 lawyers coming to you all at once, wanting your assistance for 3 different cases. So you can't plan anything. But it's a very rewarding type of profession actually to be involved with. You've got to be pretty confident. You will be up in court or you will be at arbitration hearings, and you will be cross-examined by very experienced lawyers who thrive in the courtroom mentality. And you're talking about anecdotes. There was a particular case in the USA a few years ago. And of course, in the USA, they have depositionalists. I was involved in a depositionalist. And around the table, there was about 10 or so lawyers, stenographer, and me. And I was being cross-examined. And then one of the lawyers acting on behalf of the client I was with started to get a bit annoyed with a lawyer that was asking the questions, and they eventually stood up, took their jackets off, went outside and had a fight.
Wow.
So be prepared for the unexpected.
Okay.
That's unusual, doesn't it? It's normally usually quite civilized, but it can be stressful. And there are very tight deadlines to be met. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be aware of the times that you're set for yourself and the times that are needed for the courts. And also to be aware that your opinion will reflect upon maybe the ship's crew, the captain, the company. And it's important. You can't take sides, but you've got to be aware there's people involved in this. It's not a game.
Yeah. Big responsibility. Thank you, David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, David, for this episode. It was very insightful. I'm sure you bring many a lot of values, knowledge for newcomer in the industry, but as well for experienced professionals. So again, I wish you all the best. And thank you again. Thank you for listening and watching this episode. We are looking forward to bring you more insights from maritime professionals, experts, and students. Do not hesitate to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support means a lot to us and helps us to bring you more content.
Hey, thank you very much, Paul. Nice to speak to you.